I had the privilege of watching him in Rio as a as an athlete. Parth, who has been I have he's obviously been the largest game changer in terms of how companies should invest in sport. Abhishek, obviously, who's the head of Puma, he his brand and his support to the athletes in our country is absolutely unparalleled. I will just close this. I would like to Vivek. Sorry, Vivek is also here. Vivek is a part of our panel. Vivek, everybody knows Vivek. They have revolutionized distance running in India. Vivek and Anil both. So everyone here has some kind of association with Olympics. I would like to call Boria to take this forward.
It is very rare that you see an audience and you can actually recognize each person in that audience and think, somehow, somewhere, I've met individually each of them and I have a connection. This book might be by Nalin and me, but it is actually not a book launch today. It is actually a celebration of Olympic sport in the truest sense. Now, when I say it's a celebration of Olympic sport in the truest sense, what do I mean? Let me just set it up for you. Let me set it up first with my panel, and then how do I envisage the flow over the next 45 to 50 minutes. Firstly, thank you, HarperCollins, for publishing this book. Shabnam and Akriti, thank you so much for believing in us. And HarperCollins and I, we are actually doing another book next year. Sachin, very close to your heart, 1971, 50 years of that year. England and West Indies, India winning in England and West Indies. It's the 50th anniversary. So we are doing that book for 1971, which will be published in 2021. Something that we'll talk about at some point. Okay. Now, my panel today. I'll start with Sachin because it's something as his biographer, as a friend. And this is a story. I mean, as I said, all my panelists have stories that are very closely connected to me. Raghav mentioned Sachin in Rio. And yes, he had a problem. He had an operation. He had come to Rio soon after a surgery. He had his foot in a cast. So as he reached, Raghav and I actually went to him the next morning itself and said, Sachin, you can't get out in India. You have to be confined to a 5-star hotel. Here in Rio, why don't you come out and let's go to the beach and we can have breakfast. And he said, absolutely, I'll find it difficult to walk, but yes, let's do this. Let's try and experience this. So as we walked to the shack next to the beach, and a few of us were there, and all of us were clicking photographs and celebrating. So as luck would have it, the person at that shack, he just did not speak a single word of English. So all we wanted was omelette sandwich. And he wanted to put meat in everything. So all of us, Raghav's a vegetarian. So we tried to convince that, look, all we want is an omelette sandwich and we don't want meat. We weren't able to communicate that. So finally we find this Brazilian guy who was very intently listening to us. And he figured out English. So I went to him and said, please, can you help us? All we want you to, please tell the shop owner that this is what we want. He said, who is this guy? And he looks at Sachin. And I'm like, why? He said, no, all of you all are clicking photos with him. And I said, where are you from? He says, I'm from Brazil. I said, oh, very good. Do you know Pele? He says, come on, yaar, what are you talking? I absolutely know Pele. Pele is the legend, the king, the god. I said, this guy is too Pele. He says, what? I says, he's twice Pele. Trust me on this. He says, wow. I said, yes, too Pele. So then he was very sweet. He went and explained, and we finished our breakfast. All of a sudden I turn, so there is this man, his wife, his daughter, his son. There's a full entourage. I'm like, what happened? He said, you said too Pele, I've got to take photographs with this man. So that was our initiation into Rio. Abhinav. Now Abhinav is one of his kind in the world. Abhinav will tell you that you are doing a celebration for that silly little medal that I won in 2008. And you're like, yes. He said, you are in this bubble. Now I'll give you one Abhinav story. 2008 for Beijing, Abhinav had done everything possible in the world to train, including mapping his brain in South Africa to try and see when he is shooting in a competition, what is the kind of reaction from his brain, how it is absorbing pressure. Okay? So that is part of Abhinav's training going into Beijing. Interestingly, in Beijing, where the event was held, that hall was 5 times the size of this hall. So it was a big, big shooting range. And when Abhinav first went there, he was overawed that this can be very daunting because as shooters, they are very particular about balance. So Abhinav Bindra, now I'm quoting Abhinav Bindra, he says, I came back to India, went back to Chandigarh and hired a marriage hall very close to his house, set up a shooting range there and started practicing. And this is not my line, this is his. That's the closest he has come to marriage. Okay. You know, these are superstar athletes. Mahesh, Bhupathi and I mean, where does this start? Where does this end? Incredible number of stories, including tales of heartbreak, tales of joy, multiple Wimbledon titles, French Open with Sania, that incredible year of 2012 when we were actually politicking together about what's going on in Indian tennis. We've done enormous work together. My last 3 panelists, why am I doing this panel? Corporate India and sport is something we have been bemoaning for the longest time. We need corporate support. We absolutely need support for our athletes. Abhishek Ganguly heads Puma, and Puma means Usain Bolt for many of us, but Puma also means and stands for the support to Mary Kom and Duty Chand. Now, why Duty Chand is something I asked Abhishek Ganguly. Duty Chand, one story I will tell you and you will understand how significant this is. Duty Chand was born to a family of 13 children, 12 or 13 children, and she tells me that, you know, at one point in time she would ask her mom, can I get a pair of shoes? And the mother was like, no, you can't, because you weren't born with a pair and I can't buy you a pair, I don't have the money to. So she would take cow dung cakes on her head and go and sell the cow dung cakes. So the mother said, take 2 cow dung cakes, put 1 underneath each foot, go and sell them, and when you run with 1 underneath each foot, they will serve as the shoe. 11.22 seconds, ladies and gentlemen, 0.007 away from qualifying for the Olympics. That's the support that Puma is doing. That's why for me, this kind of support has the potential to revolutionize Indian Olympic movement. Parth Jindal. If you go to that facility in Bellary, I had the opportunity to visit that facility on day 1. It is an absolutely incredible facility which will revolutionize Indian Olympic sport. In 2012, 2016, soon after, Sakshi Malik wins the medal, Vikas Krishan comes close. All of them are Parth Jindal's athletes supported by JSW Sport. But where is the difference? 1992, Limba Ram. Limba Ram goes to the Olympic Games and he competes in an event, 70-meter feet at that point in time in archery, loses by 1 point. And someone goes from the Indian organizers to Limba Ram and says to him, oh, you've lost. And he says, nahi, dobara karne dijiye, jeet jayenge. And you understand that this is the kind of mindset of the Indian athlete who has come from an underprivileged background. This is what they are changing. They are not only giving the athletes, you know, financial support, but also giving them support that they are groomed into holistic individuals who will make a difference to this country going forward. Vivek Singh. Vivek and I work very closely. Both Vivek, Anil and I work very, very closely for all the marathons. You know, every day when you open your papers, what do you read? You read about a divided India. You read about communal intolerance. You read about divisions. You read about fissures. You talk about this country being divided every single day. When you come to this city or any other, and you see the Mumbai Marathon with 55,000 people running, and this time, thanks to them, I was standing on that ceiling, next to that ceiling, and just asking people randomly, what religion, what caste, what language, what economic background? Nobody knew they were running. And that gave me some hope and some optimism about my country. Thank you, Vivek Singh, for doing what you are doing in the realm of sport. That brings my panel. So this is actually a celebration of sport in the truest sense. And as I said, I can name this audience almost individually. I'll call a lot of you up on stage for the photo ops. Finally, to my partner in crime, my co-author of this book, Nalin Mehta. What do I talk about Nalin? How do I know Nalin? 2005, we met in Australia. We've authored multiple books together. We've had fights, we've had disagreements, But at the end of the day, we've produced something that we are proud of. No one can produce a perfect history. The perfect history cannot be written. But what we have, I think, is the best we can do. It is on you, my friends from the media, to take that forward. On the athletes to document their stories, in the sense they will carve out the stories in Tokyo 2020, and this book will have a second or a third edition. The legacy will live on. So ultimately, it's not our book that's happening here. It's a celebration of Indian sport. Plenty to happen in the next 45 to 50 minutes. On that note, Nalin Mehta, please come on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, Nalin Mehta. I'm dividing this panel, and this is an impromptu call. I'm dividing this panel into two parts because that way we can give each of our panelists the chance to really go deeper. First, if I could do the corporate India and sport panel, and may I call upon stage Vivek Singh, Abhishek Ganguly, and Parth Jindal, please. We will have a quick 10-15 minute conversation. Put your hands together for Vivek Singh, Parth Jindal, and Abhishek Ganguly, and then we will get our athletes on stage to talk about India and the Olympic movement. Nalin, you want to kickstart?
Thanks so much, Boria, and thanks to everybody here for joining us on this evening at a time when the whole country is obsessed about the coronavirus and things are moving. I think this is a fantastic panel to start with. I wanted to start with you, Parth, and ask you this question. We were speaking to Gopi Chand at the last event we did, and one of the things he told us was that, after he won the All England and he wanted to set up his academy, he went to a whole bunch of corporate groups. And he said everybody wanted to click a picture, everybody wanted to help out. But when he asked them for money to set up an academy, which at that time was not a commercial enterprise, and it's still not a commercial enterprise, it was to invest in little children, to create champions for the future and not create a club. He says, after the third day, they stopped taking his calls. And there are about 7 or 8 corporate groups in this country who you can count who actually contribute to sport. So how did you start about investing in sport? And in Olympic sport and outside of cricket, because this is a cricket-bad country. So about your journey and why did that start?
Sure, I think the reason JSW started investing in sport is sitting in this room. Mahesh actually was very similar to Gopi. Mahesh actually had gone to several corporates in 2005-06 with the concept that India needs a high-performance Olympic training center in order to actually develop Indian athletes from a grassroots level. Oftentimes many foundations, many organizations even today pick up a Commonwealth Games champion or an Asian Games champion at a junior level and then try to make them an Olympic champion. That has got India this far, but if India actually wants to switch the realm and actually wants to develop Olympic athletes from day one, then we have to go much earlier in the cycle, like it's happening in cricket, like now it's happening in football. So Mahesh had tried that with several corporates, one of whom was my father. And like this similar story to Gopi Chand, everyone said no to him. And everyone just wanted to take a photo with his Wimbledon titles, and that's about it. So actually I had the opportunity to meet Mahesh in 2012. And at that time, he told me the same story. And I actually asked him a question. Being an avid sports lover and being an avid fan of all sports, staying up at night watching watching him and Leander in Athens in 2004, and obviously, I actually had goosebumps and I cried when I saw Abhinav win the gold medal in Beijing. So I asked him that, and I'd studied my whole life in England and in the US, where the Olympics is absolutely ingrained in the culture, and when the Olympics would come around, everything would stop, and we Indians would go hiding under the bed or under the sofas. And the way things would completely change when cricket was on was something which, I remember a story when I was in boarding school in England in the 2008 T20 World Cup. I was in the cricket team, and there were 17 English people and me. And when Yuvraj hit those 6 sixes against Stuart Broad, I remember doing my own Ganguly moment where I removed my shirt and went crazy. And just a few months later was the Beijing Olympics, and all my English friends started poking fun at me, saying that country of 1 billion, and you guys only won 3 medals. I was like, wait a minute, 3 medals is a lot for us. It's never happened before. So, that got me thinking that why does India not win enough Olympic medals? And I asked Mahesh this question, and he said that it's because no one has invested at the grassroots level. No one has done anything at a world-class scale. Indian athletes lack knowledge of sports science, on nutrition, and on coaching. And if a corporate can do something and can be the catalyst for change, you'll be doing a great service to the country. So that's how the whole journey started, and so he's sitting right here.
So, just as you were speaking, I was thinking of Devendra Jajaria, two-time gold medalist in the Olympics and the Paralympics. When the first time he went to Athens, he bought his own ticket. There was no one to pay for his ticket. He had a 400 rupee shoe and a 300 rupee javelin. He didn't have a TerraBand, and he went there and he saw that all the other athletes are practicing with his TerraBand, and he didn't have the money for it. So that's the first time he saw modern equipment. So how he practiced? He said, I have a kolhadi in my house. So he started cutting a tree. He would do that 400 times in a day, and that's how he built his shoulder muscles and then won the gold. So this is where our athletes come from. Boria has already talked about Duti Chand. I wanted to ask you, Abhishek. Boria has talked about your contribution with Duti Chand, with Mary. But what is the extra thing that you see yourself bringing to Indian sport?
See, I think having been in the business of sports for 1.5 decades, one thing that has come to me very clearly, and when I connect the dots, sports is a lot about inspiration, and sports grows on inspiration and on stories. Sachin is an inspiration, Abhinav is an inspiration, Mahesh is an inspiration, and similarly, that inspires the nation. So if we have to build on the culture of sport, it's great to always expect us to win Olympic medals. But we as a nation, we need to realize that what we need to do is to build the culture of sport. And let's face it, that we don't have that yet as much as is needed. And culture gets created by inspiration. And I think all different elements of the ecosystem has a role. Your book has a role because, it's a lot about inspiration comes from storytelling, which you guys have done so wonderfully well in the book. So everyone has a role to play. I think corporate India, especially as a sportswear brand, we have the opportunity to actually provide the right kind of tool for the trade for the athletes, which is a big opportunity. Talking about Duti Chand, I mean, I'm picking an anecdote on this. Yes, she comes from a very humble background. I'll tell you a story. 3 months back, I met her at an event which was organized by FICCI in Delhi. And, we were talking because generally I don't get to interact directly with her. It's the team speaking. And this is Duti Chand, the fastest woman in India ever, 11.222. And trying her luck to compete for the Indian Olympics. She comes up to me and she says, in her own ways, that, thanks for the support. You've been the first corporate sponsorship I've got. But can you do something for my training for the Olympics? Because in India, I don't get competition. I need training. I need to compete with the best who can push me. We don't speak about it, but Duti is traveling to Germany to train with the German track and field athletes, which we have organized. And this is Duti Chand, who is such a champion. And that's the real state of affairs in our country. Now, I think all of us have a responsibility. I think the biggest responsibility that we have is to inspire. And inspiration comes from stories. Because it's the mind of the young kid that you need to influence.
Okay. Taking from there, I mean, what Abhishek just said, Parth said about inspiring. 2003, there was nobody. I mean, when you started distance running in India, we've talked about this story. You went from pillar to post, trying to convince people to run. Today we have how many 200 races in the country with several million people, and how much money has been contributed to charity as a result of distance running? 55,000 alone in the Mumbai Marathon. It's happening, right? I mean, we are part of that change. We live that change.
So thank you, Boria. First of all, it is such a privilege and an honor to be here, not just on this wonderful panel, but in this wonderful room. And I think hats off to you, Boria, and to your co-author, Nalin, for pulling this off. We need books like this, and like my friend Abhishek has said, we need inspiring stories in India. So first of all, absolute pleasure and privilege to be here. And before I directly answer your question, I'm going to give a few anecdotes in Vijayanagar. Sangeeta doesn't do much of sport, and if she can be blown away by an Olympic facility, and I think every Indian should make a pilgrimage there and go and see your facility, path. I think it's absolutely incredible, and I think not many of us actually have seen something like that. I intend to go there and see it very soon. As far as Abhishek is concerned, my brother Anil and me have had the privilege of dealing with him on many levels, and it's commendable. It's commendable what Puma has done in India. It's not easy when he came in, and he's not told you, he's telling you about different things. He's not told you, and actually Boria is the best one to get it out of him. What it means to take a brand that virtually did not exist to #1 position in India. That is the mindset, and why I'm bringing this up is not to flatter my friend Abhishek, but to bring you that mindset that is required to succeed in every sphere of life. Sport is a huge sphere of life. And that mindset is what I actually would like Abhishek to share more with this evening and make this revolution happen. It's nothing short of a revolution because it is changing mindsets in this country, and that's what you're going to hear a lot about this evening, is how the mindset needs to change. And that change is happening. A sporting culture is being slowly woven into the very fabric of this country. Today, sports is on the front page of newspapers. It wasn't there 20, 30 years ago. When Anil and me started with ProCam International, there was no sporting ecosystem that existed. So in many ways, we've made giant strides. I know medals at the Olympics are still elusive, but that's elusive because they are elusive by nature. And we've got to recognize that fact. And when the conversation changes, today the conversation on sport is so much more in the living room of families and homes that never did it before. When that conversation changes, today the government is in many ways very proactive. And you're seeing that, you're seeing their sensitivity, you're seeing their reaction, you're seeing the Prime Minister tweet on different things. Where we are coming from is JSW, God bless them, they put their hand up to be counted. Many more are waiting and will do that because the culture, the conversation, the ecosystem of sport is changing. Running is the mother of all sport, and that plays, we believe, the largest role in changing and bringing about a sporting culture. Running is about extending yourself out of your comfort zone. Running is about giving. Running is about social harmony. Running is about pride and prestige. So yes, we have been fortunate that we have been able to, through us, create a movement, create a revolution, which is benefiting the entire sporting ecosystem. And not 200 races, Boria, if I may be...
1,600, right?
1,600 races today in the country from, I think, about 2 that existed when we came into running in 2000.
And what's the amount of money that we've generated for charity?
The races alone have generated 407 crores for charity in the last.
That's serious stuff. That's serious stuff. Parth, if I can take from there, for the first time in Tokyo, we will have an India house. We always, and in Rio, for example, when all of us were there, we have an America house, we have a German, Swiss, whatever it is. We have an India house. There's serious investment. Where did that come from? I know you've struggled. I know you're still struggling. And now with the coronavirus, who knows where it's going. As of now, as on date, the Olympics is on schedule. That's what Thomas Bach has said yesterday. I hope it is. But that's, again, a very bold step to do India House in Tokyo. Talk about it.
I think when I went to Rio for the first time, that was my first experience at the Olympic Games. And there was all these countries, all the major sporting nations had a house. And this house serves 2 purposes. One, it's a show of the soft power of the country. Other than sports, it shows their art history, their culture, their brands, their corporates. And it also serves as a safe haven for their country's athletes. So I remember I had gone to the France house, and if you're a French citizen, you paid only $10 to enter, and if you're a non-French citizen, you used to pay $100 to enter, and it was all about experiencing France. And I wanted to understand if there was an India house, and there was no India house. So came back and said that and obviously you hear horror stories at even at Rio about the food the athletes were eating. A lot of our Indian athletes were vegetarian, and in the games village normally the food is very different from what they're normally used to. So we thought that if we're doing so much for Olympic sports, what is being done at the Olympics is equally critical, not only to inspire people and to encourage Indians to come and watch the Olympics at Tokyo, but also for the Indian athletes. So we went to the Indian Olympic Association and pitched the idea of having India's first ever hospitality house at Tokyo, and we got their their blessing, and we made it a reality. So we're going to showcase India's soft power. So when it's Bollywood, whether it's our food, whether it's our heritage, whether it's our culture. So if anyone is inquisitive about India, they come to India House. If any Indians are in Tokyo, again, it's fully subsidized to be a part of India House, to come in, to view all our Indian athletes. All their events will be played on a giant screen. Fanatics is going to be selling tickets to all the India events at India House. So it's almost like a hangout zone for any Indian at Tokyo. It's their home away from home, and it's the same for the athletes. We're going to cater to them, their food requirements. We're in talks with the IOA to see if we can have physiotherapy sessions over there if the Olympics will allow. The International Olympic Committee has to give permission for that. So we're working with all of them so that they also feel at home, their families also feel at home, so that they can go and give their 1000% on the field of play.
Before you ask Abhishek, just to make it a point here, Raghav and I are friends first. I mean, we are family almost. But what actually is important, and this I've always craved about. When Sachin played, in 2011, even after that, I mean, that's another anecdote. 2011, whichever part of the world, 2009, 2007, 90% of the stadium is Indian, right? And we know that. 2015, when the Cricket World Cup was on in Australia, Melbourne Cricket Ground, 87,000, 84,000 Indians. Come the Olympics, not even 20 people. Now, for the first time in Rio, we had Indians. Now, if I'm made to believe by him, I think there are about 10 to 12,000 people traveling to Tokyo. So when Neeraj Chopra is there throwing his javelin 87 plus meters, 88, he wins a medal supported by Parth and his team. We will have an Indian crowd cheering. We will have an Indian crowd cheering for Mary Kom or a Vinesh Fogart or a Saurabh Chaudhary or Abhinav's people, Manu Bakar, his ilk. Now that's a change. That is where all of us cumulatively come together to sort of usher in a change that my panelists here are talking about. That for me is definitive sports culture in action.
I just wanted to, you used the word soft power. And I was reminded, in the olden, we've talked about 100 years of Olympics, right? India was a hockey superpower for a very, very long time. And one of the things that we found was, and we were talking about the business of sport, the old hockey teams, we were always very interested in figuring out as an anecdote.
This is a fantastic anecdote.
How did these teams of a colonial country, of a colonized country, how did they go and win all these medals? And we found that they did it by crowdsourcing. So the first hockey team that went, the cost was 35,000 rupees. They went to Gandhi and said, "Can you help us?" And Gandhi famously turned around and said, "What's hockey?" But the nationalist movement rallied behind them, and they did public meetings across the country in Bengal, in the United Provinces, the Central Provinces, Punjab, and they raised about 25,000 bucks. They were still short. The princes got in, Dorabji Tata got in, he put in some money. They were still short. So then they went on a steamer, 13 players had to go, only 11 could make it, they didn't have money for the other 2, and they played exhibition matches wherever they stopped on the port to raise the money for the other guys. And then comes soft power. They get there, in the third time they go in the Berlin Olympics with Hitler. India is the only team that gets there. We all remember the Berlin Olympics for the Black Power salute. But in that games, India is in the opening ceremony. India is the only team except for the Americans that refuses to salute Hitler. The British do. India is marching on the flag of the British Empire, and they don't because the Indian nationalist movement at that point is opposed to Hitler, while the British are supporting him at that point, and they refuse to salute him. And that was the soft power of Indian sport at that point of time. The question I wanted to ask Abhishek was, one of the things that changed with cricket was because India started winning at cricket. We talk about the power of sport and soft power. Ultimately, it's also about business. People got into cricket because it was monetizable. How monetizable is Olympic sport now? How much is that? Boria has given some figures, but how is it changing for you?
Olympic sports has, in the last 1 decade, I would say, has seen a dramatic jump. And across, I would say, more than tripled in terms of the funds. If you look at different kinds of leagues around a lot of the Olympic sports today, they have all come in. But I think there is a way to go. I might not. Probably my expectation is a bit more here, because I think we have to climb a mountain here, right? In terms of creating the culture. You're absolutely right. 2 things is required, in my opinion, to grow Indian sport and Olympic sport. We need champions, we need inspirations, and on the lower side, we can't just expect medals. We have to ourselves, as Indians, we have to do sport. We have to talk sport. We have to play sport. We have to encourage kids playing sport. So I think we have a mountain to climb. Lot of positivity, which is the good thing. But I think we all have to contribute to that. Watch more sport, play more sport, go to more sporting events, encourage kids to watch sport, take them to stadiums. A culture gets created over decades. And as an enormous country with so much of potential, we need to somehow crash this lead time of whatever 50 years it takes to build culture. And I think we all need to do more. Things are happening, but we need to do more.
Let me ask the last question of this panel to Vivek before I take predictions of what their expectations are from Tokyo. How significant are medals? Is it only about medals? Or is it also about sport for all, sport for development? You need to run. Not everybody will win medals. I mean, there are issues in this country, and we can't shy away from that. When you see running, Indians will not win marathons. We will have a different set of yardsticks for international runners and Indian runners, but people still run. How important is sport for development?
So it's a very good question, actually, Boria. And I think medals have their place, but it's not the whole and soul. It's not the holy grail for me. It's much more than that. Sport builds character, sport reveals character. Sport makes you face up to adversity when many times it's not fair. Life can be very unfair. But sport says, you know what, so what? That's how it is, that's the cards that are thrown, you better step up to the plate. These are the values that sport brings to the table. All things are, music is important, everything is important. But what sport brings to a person at a certain age and stage in life is irreplaceable, in my opinion. This country is seeing a change at that level. Medals will inspire, stories will inspire, but the change we are seeing is that people are realizing, families are realizing, middle-class families from across India are realizing 3-4 things. One, sport is important for the overall build of a child's character. Second, it could be the only way that that child is going to get out of the cycle of economic hardship that he or she faces. Sport is one huge ticket out of that cycle of economic hardship. The third thing is sport brings a lot of personal pride and prestige to a person, which helps a lot for a child's growth. So you have to view sport, and I think corporates like Path's corporate are not doing it just for medals. I mean, he may say that, but he's doing it because as a company, Tata's, they haven't done it just for medals. They're in practically every sport that there is. They have done it because of what sport brings to a country, what it brings to a society, the way it unites people, you mentioned that, the way it changes the mindset. And I think that should not be forgotten. If we only chase medals, we may be doing great, but we may come up short in the big picture.
Okay. Just to add to that, I was interviewing Mrs. Ambani about a week back, and they have a foundation, multiple initiatives. One of this is a foundation, and the first batch of graduates who had come into that foundation are now coming out and getting contracts with all these football clubs, one of them owned by Parth, Bengaluru FC. Now, each of these people, one guy came from Kerala, does not speak English, does not speak any other language but his native tongue, now gets a contract. So it's an overall grooming. I don't think that's for medals. So this is the kind of support. Your expectation from Tokyo, how many? First week, Abhinav's youngsters getting you medals. What's the hope?
I think 10 medals.
10?
10 medals,
Good
and
stuff.
I think 5 from shooting. And then you have Vinesh Fogart, Bajrang Punia, you have Ravi, and Deepak Punia. So you have quite a few hopefuls.
So definitely the best Olympics for us.
100%.
Abhishek?
12.
Wow. They're optimistic, but good. Vivek?
I'm happy to go with theirs. You know, for me, I think it is going to be the best Olympics. And I think the kind of impact it's going to have across the country's consciousness is going to be great. And that's going to help us move forward.
Okay.
Boria, I want to add one thing.
Yeah.
We can all expect medals. We should expect sporting glory. But I'll tell you one data. We did a research a year back. And the sample size was about 7,000 people across 25 years to 40 years. The last time they did sport, 93% of the people, last time they had done any sport was in class 10. We can expect a lot of medals, but I think it's unfair on our athletes when we don't have the culture of playing sport ourselves. If everyone starts doing sport, I think there will be the change, because we will let our kids do sport. We will understand the importance of how sport builds character. And it is not just about winning. And then once you do that, you move the ground. And the groundswell is required for us to then expect 50 medals at some point of time, 20 years later.
True. Absolutely. You know, I as I said, I mean, this is a celebration. I can see people who Rahul, welcome. There are people who I need to call upon stage for photo ops. Generally, the practice is my whole panel comes together. It's not possible because this stage will not accommodate more than 8 or 9. So can I have Shabnam, either Akriti or you, one of you to come for this panel. And we also call some of my friends before I move on to the next panel. So I'll be doing 2 photo ops, which are departure from our general norm at book launches. Because as I said, this is not simply our book. It belongs to every one of you. Every one of you, because we are all part of the movement. Vivek, can you please come on stage? Anil, come on stage. Avantika and Raghav, both of you, please come on stage. Come. All of you come on stage. We'll do another one. Bansal Saab, on stage, please. Let's do for the first photograph with all of you people. Can we have the books to them? And then I will call my athletes to have the discussion. Shabnam, books. Books. Yes. So before and on the note that Abhishek, please, Aniket, to everyone on stage, please. On the note that Abhishek finished, this is for me. He can tell many more. But he lands in Australia. Okay. I will make one announcement and I will call them up on stage during the photo op again. You know, the power of the written word in India is only limited. The power of the written word is limited because we consume, our reading habits are only up to a point. When that is converted on a celluloid platform, many more people consume it. And I'm absolutely delighted that both these projects, Dreams of a Billion and 1971, which will happen next year, we have decided, thanks to Sanjay and Sarita, their Matchbox, we have decided to collaborate to put both these books, both these projects on celluloid. So you will see documentaries coming out of both these books, which people can consume in the mass platform. So you will see them getting converted for television, for feature, for docu-features. Absolutely delighted, because the number of people who will then consume these athletes who are absolute heroes will be so many more millions. So thank you, both of you. Sanjay, Sarita, thank you so very much. We'll call you on stage during the photo op. Now, ladies and gentlemen, 3 of India's all-time greatest. Perhaps, you know, you've seen the Laureus moment, the greatest sporting moment ever in the last 20 years. Put your hands together for for Bharat Ratna Sachin Tendulkar. 2008, 7:30 in the morning, the last shot of 10.8 revolutionized Indian sport for all times to come. Abhinav says it was a silly medal. For me, it has given me a life. Yes, I live in that bubble and happily live in that bubble of sport for all my life. Put your hands together for Abhinav Bindra. As an Indian, to win Grand Slams was a dream. That dream got accomplished multiple times since then. One shot away. So sport is not only about glory. People fail many, many more times than they win. He's tasted glory. He's tasted defeat. He's an icon, will always be. Put your hands together for Mahesh Bhupathi. I'll start with you, Sachin. Sachin, you were in Rio, 2016. You had the cast.
Boria, I thought I was supposed to say all that.
Okay.
I'm just joking.
You have the field, but your first experience of Rio, because you spoke to Indian athletes there. Your first Olympics in that sense at IOC invite. Can you talk about your first experience of Rio?
I was in London when I got a mail from Thomas Bach that he would like me to attend the Rio Olympics. Even though I was operated on my knee, which was a major surgery, I decided to go because I didn't want to wait for 4 more years. You know, after I stopped playing cricket, I thought this was something that connected me with other athletes. When I landed there, it was a big challenge because I had this big brace on my leg, and it was really tough to roam around here and there. The biggest experience of Rio was being able to enter, having access to that village, which I believe even media guys are not allowed. Nobody's allowed. So I mean,
Is that a dig?
No, not really. I mean, it is something where sport being played at the highest level, you require focus. You require to be in that zone. I was just discussing with Abhinav, and he said, I don't remember my career. So entire career he's been in that zone, and that is the beauty of sport and the commitment of our athletes. I had the privilege of spending an afternoon with our athletes. I just wanted to go there and wish them. I was not there to give them a lecture, nothing. I was there to give my best wishes on behalf of all of us here. I said, the nation is looking forward to your performances. Go out and do what you're good at. I myself, I remember in Malaysia a long time ago, I think in year 1998, when the Commonwealth Games were played there, I was part of it. And we spent about 10 days or so in the village there. So I loved that atmosphere, rubbing shoulders with athletes. There were a number of leading athletes in the world who were participating there. And to be able to just adopt a different lifestyle, because when you play Cricket World Cup, you don't have a village. You stay in different hotels, and it's a different experience altogether. So I thoroughly enjoyed, though I'm not complaining here. For those 10 days, we did not have hot water in the room. We somehow managed to keep ourselves clean. But all in all, the experience was fantastic. But the icing on the cake was when I in Rio, I watched Indian hockey team, and they played brilliantly, because I had kind of planned my trip in a way where I could watch Indian athletes and support them. Hockey was one of those sports which I witnessed, and our team really did well. And with Thomas Bach, I ended up watching a rugby match, because rugby also, I think they have 6 or 7 players, lesser players than a normal rugby team. But the energy was incredible over there. And then finally, one of those mornings having that egg sandwich was also not a bad experience.
And coconut water. So to add to that.
If I can ask Sachin, you've had such historical milestones in your career, and you continue to have them long after you've retired, including with the Laureus Sports Moment now. One of the critiques of cricket has been that it's relatively lesser countries. Now, in the Laureus competition, your iconic picture from the World Cup, it beat a whole bunch of things from across the world, including Usain Bolt and others. How did that feel for you compared to your moments on the cricketing field?
First of all, let me make it clear, it's not me, it's us. That was the best moment of my life on the field. And that was the reason I started playing cricket. In 1983, when India won the World Cup, I was watching and I did not understand, but I started my journey then. Somewhere, something had ticked. And I said, okay, this is what I want to do one day. So it took me 21 years, I never lost hope. And along with me, you also never lost hope, which was a good thing. Because sport is all about, having that hope, believing in yourself, and then immersing yourself in your preparations. Invariably, I feel that once you are immersed in that process, results follow. And that is what I did. I just wanted to stay passionate, just wanted to continue being madly in love with what I like doing. And I loved playing cricket. I didn't want to do anything else in life. So that gets appreciated. What better than that? I think everyone has played a role. And it is, you mentioned about, the books also inspire. And then these kind of stories, hopefully, when youngsters watch, maybe 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, how India won the World Cup in 2011, I'm sure, it will continue to inspire them. And it's then one such moment, because I've always believed sport has the power to unify the world. It brings everyone closer, it brings everyone tighter, and that is what we need. I think as Indians, that things will not happen. It's all about young, healthy and fit India.
Abhinav, to take from there, everybody knows your journey. You started a reluctant kid, taking to shooting and then doing everything, all kinds of things. But I don't think any of my audience actually knows that you also stole a miniature.
And you're revealing the story.
Go for it. Go for it. Go for it and tell us what happened under pressure.
I loved training. I was a very lousy competitor, to be very honest. And I was always assailed by a lot of anxiety and nervousness. And, I was a chicken-hearted person while I was actually competing. So, I'd done everything possible, from mapping my brain to going to a commando course in preparation for Beijing. I was training in Germany, and I was going to, leave a bottle of Jack Daniels and put it in my toilet kit. What to do? So, you have to learn to deal with failure, but you also need to learn how to deal with success. So, and sport teaches you that. It teaches you how to win. It teaches you how to lose, and then you have to keep a balance. And I think that is the most important thing.
Mahesh, if I can bring you into the conversation. You've gone where no Indian has gone before, the number of medals, the number of titles you won, the Grand Slams you won, and in a sport where India has traditionally not been very strong. Abhinav, after he stopped shooting, he was part of a renaissance of Indian shooting where they completely changed the system of Indian shooting by creating a juniors program, which is now reaping great rewards for India. What is it when you were growing up wanting to be a tennis player that you missed and which you wish you would have had in retrospect? And what is it that you would like to change in Indian tennis now to create that next generation? Because that's not necessarily coming in the way many people would like.
I think growing up, so I think, vis-a-vis infrastructure we've always had, when I speak about tennis, what you need tennis courts, you need a track, you need a gym. Right, I think the biggest thing that we didn't have were the experts growing up. to teach us at a very young age, how to train, how to recover, how to eat. And, if I wanted to have something when I was growing up, I told both Parth and Mustafa this, I wish I had that institute to kind of train and use as my base. I would have been a much, much better athlete, which would have been a much better tennis player. So, we did not have that. I think we had the Sai centers, which I think were poorly managed and, not fully used for the athletes. So I think, like everyone said here on the panel, things are getting better. Things have to get a lot better. They're not, moving at the pace that they should. I think the last Olympics technically was a disappointing Olympics for everyone. I think when everyone came home, there was a lot of speculation on what should be done. But, I don't think enough was done. Today we're all hoping for 10 medals, 15 medals, if it's an amazing Olympics. But honestly, if we come back with 6, I think we need to all, throw a big party.
Mahesh, you were one shot away from an Olympic medal. Take us through that. Tell us what.
Thanks for bringing that up.
So you were literally one shot away, 1 point away.
Yeah, like Abhinav says, disappointment. I think it goes with the territory. Honestly, as tennis players, it's a very different vibe for us when we go to the Olympics, because when we grow up, the biggest events have always been Wimbledon, the US Open and the French Open. Olympics. Tennis was only introduced in the Olympics in '88, and then when I went to Atlanta for the first time in 1996, I don't know, I had no idea what the Olympics meant. I was just happy to be there. I think we got a wild card because Leander needed a partner and Mahesh was hanging around. So, but then obviously when you get, you play for the flag and you get the juices flowing, and, then you see the kind of atmosphere with the other athletes and going to the opening ceremony, you get the goosebumps. Yeah, I mean, the biggest regret, I think, of my career is not being able to win that match. And you put that same situation back on the table 10 times with the 4 semi-finalists. I'm pretty sure 9 out of 10 we end up with the medal. But, that's how the cookie crumbles in sport.
Sachin, what you just said, I mean, if I can ask you, you've at the age of 16, you take on Pakistan, one of the toughest things in sport. At the age of 19, you win a man of the match title in a World Cup match against Pakistan. So when these youngsters, they sort of go, a Manu Bakhar, a Saurabh Chaudhary, or whoever, I mean, and a lot of our athletes are between the age groups of 16 and 20. They are young people, formative minds, all of a sudden will be exposed to Olympic stage and pressure. As an athlete, if I can ask you, how do you deal with pressure? You've been there, done that?
I think it's important to understand the direction of pressure. If it's on top of your head, it will only take you down. If it's with you, you move forward. And that is exactly what we discussed during 2011 World Cup. That 1.3 billion is with us. It's not sitting on top of our heads. So that suddenly changed our thought process. And it's good to have that pressure. And why do expectations increase? Expectations only raise because of your past good performances, which is a good thing to happen. I mean, I would much rather have that pressure when I'm walking out to bat, when people are expecting something of me. And I would be at a wrong spot if people are not expecting anything from me. So my message to them is, continue to be what you can be, the best that you can be. And it's all about that moment. I mean, you've got both leading athletes who've experienced that at the highest level, where literally a fraction can change. It's a difference between getting a medal and not getting a medal. But let's not think about that fraction. You think about what you want to do, rather than thinking of the possible problems, possible obstacles. You find solutions, because challenges are always going to be there. They are going to be your constant companion. And if you constantly find solutions, you keep moving forward.
Just to ask a follow-up before Nalin takes over again. This is not an Olympic question, but if, for example, when Abhinav won the gold or you won the World Cup, people haven't been there. I mean, he's still alone. When Mahesh won the Grand Slam, our women's team have made the finals of the World Cup, which is this Sunday. Yes, it was a rained out game, but that doesn't matter. We've won all our games in the pool stages. We've made the final as the best team. it has a 16-year-old Shefali Verma who met you in Australia. When they go to that final, India has not won it ever. Your thoughts, your message, how do you deal with whole country will again be watching? They fell close at Lords.
Shut that out of your mind, honestly. Just be in that moment, go out and play. Because coincidentally, I was there next to the trophy and our few team members were there from our women's team. And I said, it would be nice to see you with this trophy in India. So go out and give your best. And that is what my message to them is. Don't take any pressure, though it's easier said than done. I remember when we were playing Pakistan in 2003 World Cup match, the schedule was announced a year in advance. And people kept telling me कि ये मैच जीतना है और बाकी का जो होना है होने दो. I said ऐसे नहीं होता. And then they would say कि okay, but कोई pressure नहीं लेना. So thank you very much. So all these things happen. But I genuinely want to tell them that, just stay together. You don't need to spend time with the outside world. If you are in company with each other, you can keep talking positive things because good things have happened to our team. I've been following their performances and they have inspired so many youngsters. And not only to pick up a cricket bat or a cricket ball. It's about being a good athlete. It's about bringing Lawrence to our nation. And if you can come back, so many athletes in different fields have brought laurels to our nation. This would be another one. And that's what I would say, that go out and enjoy yourself.
I wanted to ask Abhinav. Abhinav, you were part of the Olympic task force with the Prime Minister set up. You were also part of the, after the Rio Olympics, one of the big disappointments in Rio was shooting. But since then, there's been a renaissance in Indian shooting. You were part of a committee that was set up. We've talked about systems in Indian sport and what's wrong. One of the things that Indian sport has done fantastically well at in the last 4 years is by changing everything in shooting. And that came from the report that you wrote as the head of a committee.
This committee, the Bindra.
It was your committee. You headed it. You identified all the problems in Indian shooting and they fixed many of those. Talk us through that, because right now, we have a whole bunch of teenagers who are winning medals for India in shooting, and that came out as a result of what you guys identified.
No, I don't agree with that. I think the report obviously showed a few flaws that happened, but I think the success that we are having is due to the process that has been set into play for a vast period of time. I mean, we fixed a few things, but the process started a long time ago. I mean, the federation started investing in a junior program for a long time, and what the systems that were set in place maybe 10 years back, which have been polished now, are now showing results. I think one thing in sport which we need to recognize is that we need to be very patient and we need to be persistent. I think the federation did a really good job in actually accepting that they went wrong in certain areas, and then they've tried to fix it. But of course, it's been a process which was set into play for a fair period of time. It has been polished over the last few years, but the success what we are seeing now is the result of all what has happened in the last 10 years, I would say.
I think Abhinav, as usual, is being modest as he always is. One of the things they did in that report was that they identified the flaws. One of the flaws was they found in Rio, for example, a particular coach was being paid money when the coach didn't exist. They published all this and they put it in the public domain. And they fixed these things. That's very rare to happen in a federation in Indian sport. So, we must give credit when we, as journalists, we give brickbats, we must give credit where it's due. Boria.
Absolutely. Mahesh, what is it about Olympic stage? I mean, whoever you speak to and people say, oh, it's the Olympic stage, the pressure of the Olympic Games. I mean, can you make me understand that, like, what goes through? Yes, it comes every 4 years, but his famous line, it comes every day. Is that the way you train? Like in your case, and to deal with, I don't want to create controversy here, but 2012 winning the French Open, then you don't get to play the London Games with Sania. In 2012, you are forced into a corner even before you go and play the Olympics. Talk to me about the mindset and the Olympic stage and the tough challenges that one. How do you deal with the Olympic stage?
No, I think it's from an athlete's perspective, it's a lot of excitement. I don't really listen to anything Abhinav says because we all know he's special and he's got his own process. So when it's 2 years before the Olympics, you're already getting excited because you as a tennis player you want to peak at a certain time because there's a cutoff. For example, in June to be able to qualify for the Olympics. In other sports you have your pre-qualifying events. Yeah, and I think the biggest excitement besides, having that opportunity to win a medal for your country is the fact that it comes in once in 4 years, right? I mean, like I said, there are World Cups and there are World Championships and there are Grand Slam events, but, coming home with a medal from the Olympics, coming home with any kind of success at the Olympics is, something that you'll be able to tell, people write books about.
Correct. In Sachin's case, okay, this is one anecdote. I've got 10 more minutes. I'll talk to them for 10 more minutes before I close out and do my photo op. So I'm doing this interview with Roger Federer, and in the middle of it, he had given me the autobiography that we had written together. So he had given a copy signed to give it to Roger. So I give that copy to Roger Federer, and he looks at it and he says, "Oh, you know what?" In the middle of the interview, he says, "Only time when I was playing Wimbledon, and Roger Federer knows who Roger Federer is. So he says, the only time when I was playing Wimbledon and all of a sudden I was posing for a photograph with this man, Sachin Tendulkar, and people weren't screaming Roger, Roger, they were screaming Sachin, Sachin." And I'm like, "What?" He says, "Yeah, tell your friend." And I'm like, wow. Now these two have a good bonding. Sachin, in Tokyo, again, you've been invited by the IOC. Looking forward to watching Roger? Maybe the last time?
I'm looking forward to watching Roger, but our guy should take the medal. I think it's important that, India comes first and then the rest of the world. Yes, Roger is a good friend and he would also understand what I'm trying to tell. We need those medals. And see, Roger is a terrific athlete, and, I'm not talking rocket science here, but he is a wonderful human being. I think that is something that I really, really value. Whenever he's there playing tennis, it's a poetry in motion I enjoy. That's one sport that I follow very closely, and I'd like to believe that I understand a little bit. So, I hope that he's there, but India takes the medal.
India takes the medal. The first week, hopefully Sachin's there and multiple medals. I mean, realistically, when you look, so we keep pegging these numbers and giving these numbers. I know you will say I'm out of that bubble, but do you follow your sport still very closely? Because a lot of these youngsters keep mentioning that you have inspired them. Your high performance center that you did, by the way, the one high performance center that Abhinav created for the first time in Chandigarh for elite high performance Indian athletes, that's free. That is a real give back to Indian sport, ladies and gentlemen. So they keep talking about all of that. Do you follow them? And how close are we? They've won every possible tournament, every possible World Cup, every possible competition. Raninder says we are going to win so many, etc. How hopeful are you?
Well, we go into the games as favorites. I think we can't shy away from that.
Is this the first time that India goes as favorites in shooting?
In multiple events. We have 15 quota places at the moment, which would result in 21 starts, because some of them shoot multiple events. So 21 shots at a medal. So even if we have 50% strike rate, that's a lot of medals.
You're asking me for my prediction. Well, Boria and I have been debating this a lot before, and I think we've agreed at least on a number of, to be conservative, about 7 to 8. Anything less than 7 to 8 medals, I think, on current form, because of course anything can happen on that moment. These gentlemen will know that 100 times more than I would know that. But I think 7 to 8 on current form is a reasonable expectation.
Mahesh, your favorite Olympic story? Is the village your favorite Olympic story?
Yeah, the Olympic Village is, where it all happens. You get to see, the biggest superstars over there. You look out of your window at 4 a.m. and you'll see guys in full track suits in really hot temperature running, non-stop around the block for hours trying to lose weight before their weigh in. I got to meet in Atlanta. I got to shake hands with Muhammad Ali at the Olympic Village while he was in a wheelchair. I saw Kobe Bryant. Usain Bolt. It's just it's a surreal experience. And as Sachin says, that's always cherished.
Sachin, in Rio, that experience of ours was quite interesting. You went for that hockey game, and just as you were walking with that cast, and that was quite a challenge. And then they literally stopped us and said, "Go to the." You remember that?
It was a challenge, and since we are talking about that story, let me not talk about myself, but at the Laureus Awards, I came across this paranordic skiing athlete, and she obviously, did not have both limbs, and while skiing, she had fractured her elbow, and she won a medal. I made a special effort to meet her after the prize reception was done, because I've never come across any athlete who's been faced with so many challenges. So I went and I congratulated her, and she was not. I don't think she followed cricket, but just as a fellow colleague, I would say that it made me feel special that I'm also an athlete, because those kind of experiences, we talk about minor injuries here and there, and here where you don't have both your limbs and your one arm is fractured, and then you go and win a medal. I think that's just incredible. So my walk, forget about that walk, that's hardly anything.
Parth Jindal, Abhishek Ganguly and Vivek Singh all mentioned about inspiration, and Sachin just mentioned para-athletes. How many of my audience has heard of Murlikant Petkar? This is one of the best audiences one can possibly have. How many of you have heard of Murlikant Petkar? See, this is what the three of them just mentioned. Who is Murlikant Petkar? Murlikant Petkar, 1965 war veteran, 5 bullets, 1968 first ever Indian Paralympian to win a bronze, 1972 gold medalist in the 50-meter freestyle with a world record of 33 seconds. This country still doesn't know of Murlikant Petkar. We need a sports culture, ladies and gentlemen. We absolutely need a sports culture. This is what this panel is talking about. My last panelists are talking about. When Devendra Jhajaria tells me that Nalin has told you about the Kulhari story, that he cut 500 times and he did not have a TheraBand. Devendra Jhajaria said in school, he was 8 years old when his hand got electrocuted and he lost his hand, right? So he says, like in India, people said, "Arey tera to ek haath nahi hai." And his mother would tell him, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, you are absolutely fine, you should train exactly like other kids, go play. So he had gone to school and he had given his name for this competition in the javelin. So these other kids told him, how can you throw the javelin? You can't, you don't have a hand, move away. So he goes home crying, and his mother says, if you believe in yourself, he was born into a farming family, there were trees around, so he cut a tree log, made it into a javelin and started practicing at home. And he tells me, quote, he says, Boria da, when that school sport happened, और मैं वहाँ गया, मैंने नाम दिया, और बाकी सब लोग मेरे पे मजाक कर रहे थे, मेरा हंसी मजाक कर रहे थे कि फिर तू आ गया. I said, आप लोग पहले कर लो, फिर उसके बाद मैं करूँगा. And he says, when the highest was 35 meters, and he threw 42 meters as a school child, he says, I had won an Olympic gold. That for me, these moments, Abhinav, Bindra, Sachin Tendulkar, Mahesh, Bhupathi, I think revolutionizes Indian sport forever. Sachin, your favorite memory has already been celebrated at Laureus, but I need to ask you this. 2011 World Cup, one thing that I will never forget. You actually called Sudhir Kumar Gautam into the dressing room and passed him the trophy. All of us are fans here. Why?
I think वो हमारे लिए सब कुछ करता है. I think with people like these, they have no expectations, zero expectations. I have offered him plenty of things. He doesn't want to take anything from me except a match ticket. So, you have these kind of fans. And I called him, I said, कि ना तुम सारे fans को represent कर रहे हो यहाँ पे. तुम्हारे हाथ में ये trophy पकड़ो तुम और उठाओ trophy जैसे हम सब उठा रहे हैं वैसे तुम्हें भी उठाना चाहिए trophy. And that was, it came from my heart. And we called him to the dressing room. All the players were there and we allowed him to lift the trophy.
Fantastic. Mahesh, your favorite sporting moment, Wimbledon or anything like that? Or you will say it's a silly medal? You won't.
No, I think, for us, winning that Wimbledon title in '99 will always stand out because growing up in India, Wimbledon is a lot more special than the other Grand Slams, and it was never really our favorite surface either. So being able to win Wimbledon once, at least in doubles, is probably the highlight.
And thereafter started that journey. Abhinav? It has to be that one moment. I mean, Nalin and I, today we were talking about it, and I said what you said, that it's a silly medal. Why is he celebrating it again? For God's sake, in 100 years, one guy has won it.
My favorite sporting moment came one training day. It came when nobody was watching. I hated physical exercise and I was to do 100 sit-ups. It was the 31st of December and my trainer miscounted at 95. He said, "I'm done for the year, well done." I said, "No, I have 5 more to go." That was my favorite sporting day.
Fabulous, absolutely fabulous and very Abhinav. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, it's been an absolutely glorious what? I promised Sachin 7:45, I promised Abhinav 7:45. We've overshot, but that's fine. I mean, it means a lot to all of us here. As I said, this book will be converted. This book will be converted on celluloid, and it gives me great pleasure. Thank you once again, Sarita and Sanjay. Please, can both of you come up on stage? And I told Raghav this. This book is dedicated to somebody very special to me. Rochana, can you come up on stage, please? My sister, she survived breast cancer. For me, a real-life hero. This book is dedicated to her. Rahul, please, can I have you on stage, please? Come. This is a celebration. Please come up on stage. Rajneesh, can I have you on stage? Come up on stage for the final photo op. Akriti, can I please have you on stage? Join us on stage. I'm indebted to HarperCollins for believing in this project. Raghav, can I please have you on stage once more? This is a very, very special moment for each of us, like the last photo op. It's taken 8-9 years for Nalin and me to put this together. There can be flaws. My friends in the media, several of you I know. I think I can see Shayan there. Clayton was supposed to come. Ashwin's there. A lot of you who are dear friends of mine who do Olympic sport as I have done over several years. We learn together. We celebrate our athletes together. This is a journey that all of us are part of. It is a journey that each of us are proud of, and each of us will forever be proud of. It is for India, as all of them says. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again to all of them. Sachin Tendulkar, Abhinav, Bindra, Mahesh, Bhupathi, and everybody on stage. Thank you for being a wonderful audience. Dreams of a billion, maybe another edition after Tokyo. Somebody will again tell me, "Tumne aur ek kitab likh diya." Who knows? Thank you very, very much. Thanks a lot. One second. Abhishek, Parth, can you please join in again? Come. Vivek, can you join in? Anil, can you join in? Let's the final photo up, please. Come. There you go. Esho. Super. I hope all of you have enjoyed this program because it was all about a celebration of Indian sport. And once again, I'm indebted to all of you. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thank you so very much. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Oh, Mustafa, why did I not call you on stage? Please. No. Sorry. I missed you. Come. Come on stage. Again, somebody very, very dear to me. My apologies. Please come on stage. Sports person, someone we are working extremely closely. We've got to take one photograph together. Come. Come here. Come this side. Whichever side. Thank you. Acha, this is for Anjali. Okay, there's food, right? For everybody, where is it? So there's dinner outside for everybody in the audience. So please do join us for dinner. Because thanks to Raghav once again. I did not thank you because I don't need to. So yeah, let's take a photograph. Where is Sachin? So let's give this to Sachin for Anjali.